Hi, welcome to our channel of IGNOU audiobooks, Indira Gandhi National Open University, School of Social Sciences, SOSS, Bachelor's Degree Programs, Bachelor of Arts, BAG, Anthropology, Semester I, BANC131 Anthropology and Research Methods, Block-1 Understanding Anthropology, Unit-1 Definition, Scope and Significance of Anthropology. 1.0 Introduction. We, humans, have our own made world. Apart from our physical presence, there is also our social, cultural and practical world. We need anthropology when we have to know and understand things related to disciplining ourselves as a subject. It would be very interesting to understand human beings as a subject in human form. Humans want to understand themselves in all their forms. 1.1 Defining Anthropology. Giving a single comprehensive definition of anthropology is difficult as the subject is divided into 4 sub-branches that deal with different aspects of human existence. To be called an anthropologist, a person needs to have studied all the 4 branches. Social-cultural anthropology, biological anthropology, archaeology, linguistic anthropology. However, generally in India and elsewhere students tend to specialize in one of these branches for obtaining master's degrees and doing research. Anthropology is a holistic discipline as it tries to understand human existence from different angles of culture, biology, history, and environment. Eric Wolf, 1964, states, "Anthropology is less a subject matter than a bond between subject matters. It is in part history, part literature, in part natural science, part social science. It strives to study men both from within and without. It represents both a manner of looking at man and a vision of man, the most scientific of the humanities, the most humanist of sciences." Anthropologists are interested in understanding the origin and development of human species. They are also interested in knowing how environment affects culture and how culture has an impact over the growth and development of human personality. They inquire about the existence of human variation and try to find reasons behind such variations. They are equally interested in the reconstruction of human past and its culture. Besides having such diverse interests, anthropologists also have a diverse and unique toolkit in the form of research methods that help in answering such questions. Anthropologists also apply their knowledge and methods of research in solving practical problems and thus giving rise to a new field in anthropology called applied anthropology. The word anthropology literally means science of human, as anthropos means human and logos means science. However, this definition gives a very broad and vague idea about the subject matter of anthropology, as other disciplines such as psychology, history and sociology can also be considered as studying human beings. The American Anthropological Association defines anthropology as the study of humans, past and present. To understand the full sweep and complexity of cultures across all of human history, anthropology draws and builds upon knowledge from the social and biological sciences as well as the humanities and physical sciences. A central concern of anthropologists is the application of knowledge to the solution of human problems. The basic idea in this definition is that anthropology is an integrative science that tries to understand human in its totality. It studies cultural and biological diversities for a better understanding of human existence. Anthropology appreciates and celebrates diversity. 1.1.1 Holistic, integrated discipline. Integrating biological, archaeological and cultural dimensions to understand human past and present can generate interesting results. An example can illustrate this point more clearly. We all have studied about the Indus Valley civilization and know something about the fascinating culture and society during that period. Its past had been reconstructed on the basis of archaeological findings in the form of artifacts, seals, statues, objects of daily use, objects of luxury etc. As its script has not been deciphered. The past is reconstructed based entirely upon contextual findings and scientific analysis. Some male and female skeletal remains have been found from Harappa. On genetic analysis of these remains found that most of the male skeletal remains were genetically not related. On the other hand, most of the females were genetically related to each other. Since most of the females were related genetically, therefore, the residence pattern after marriage could be matrilocal in nature. This suggests that after marriage a male might have go to his wife's house to reside, which is opposite of what we observe generally in India. This may also have important bearing in the context of position of women in the society. It has been observed that in matrilocal societies, position of women is better than their patrilocal counterparts. Anthropology therefore takes a holistic view of human existence. It starts from placing the Homo sapiens in the evolutionary scheme to analyzing the variations within the human species. It then tries to understand the emergence and diversification of culture and emergence of civilization. Mackintosh, 2008. 1.1.2 Comparative Science. Besides being holistic, there are other defining characteristics of the subject. Anthropology since its inception had been a comparative science. It is through the method of comparison that an anthropologist reaches to some kind of generalizations. Different cultures and human populations are compared in order to understand similarities and differences between them. During the emergence of the subject, comparison was used as a method to illustrate and categorize different cultural groups into an evolutionary sequence. However, over a period of time, from the beginning of 20th century, due to the emergence of new ideologies in the subject, comparison was made in order to reach certain generalizations about the structure of the society and laws governing the society. The comparative method also generated an important debate between ethnocentrism and cultural relativism. In the beginning, comparison between simple and complex societies led to a belief that some societies are superior to the others and the Western societies are at the epitome of cultural evolution. This gave rise to an ethnocentric bias. However, over a period of time it was realized that every culture should be understood in its own specific context and there is nothing like the concept of superior or inferior culture. This came to be known as the idea of cultural relativism. Harris, 1968-2001. It is this idea which adds value to the subject and makes us more tolerant towards other cultures and populations. Such kind of a debate and synthesis of idea was possible only in a subject like anthropology, which is concerned with human and cultural variations. 1.1.3 Fieldwork Method. The hallmark of anthropology is its fieldwork method. B. Malinowski popularized intensive fieldwork method. An anthropologist is expected to spend a considerable amount of time in the field, around 1 year. Traditionally, a field is defined as a place inhabited by a cultural group. Mostly anthropologists choose their field among the tribal communities that inhabit certain far-flung hilly, forest or coastal areas. Most of the earlier stalwarts in the subject chose their field among such communities. For example, Malinowski worked among the Trobriand Islanders inhabiting Papua New Guinea. Evans Pritchard worked among the newer community of Anglo-Egyptian Sudan. Radcliffe Brown worked among the Andaman Islanders. Margaret Mead worked among the Samoans. It is also expected from a fieldworker that she will not only stay with the people that she intends to study but also learn their language and ways of life. She is expected to participate in the daily activities of the people and at the same time observe how people and their various institutions function. This method is known as participant observation. Employing this method, a fieldworker participates in the social life of the community she is studying and observes how people negotiate their cultural and social lives. This method was popularized by Malinowski as he was of the opinion that an anthropologist should not rely on what people say that they do, but rather an anthropologist should observe for herself what people actually do, because sometimes people won't tell you what they exactly do or how they carry out their social and cultural activities, as they might indulge in politics of representation where they might project the ideal and conceal the actual. Therefore, in order to understand the actual, observation is needed. The idea of participant observation will get a researcher closer to the way people think and carry out their activities. This is the way of understanding the people's point of view or people's perspectives. Robin and Slucker, 2007. Activity 1.1.3. Watch a BBC4 documentary on Malinowski, Tales from the Jungles. Malinowski, for getting a closer look into anthropological fieldwork. 1.2 Objectives of ANTHROPOLGY. Objectives of a discipline can be defined at two levels. A. At the level of the students of the discipline, which includes the objective of studying the discipline. B. At the level of different stakeholders, that is to say, that how the knowledge created by research in a particular discipline is being negotiated by people at large, or what purpose does it serve for different people such as administrators, thinkers, and researchers. At the first level, the objective of anthropology is to make students aware of and appreciate human and cultural variations. This, in turn, leads to a much nuanced approach to various life situations. It is the only discipline that takes into account the biosocial existence of the human population. Most of the path-breaking researches in anthropology have been conducted among the tribal and peasant groups, and therefore it brings a largely marginalized section of human population into dominant public and intellectual discourse through knowledge sharing and dissemination. 1.2.1 Cultural relativism. EO and dissemination. At the second level, of different stakeholders, one would find that anthropology as a discipline started with the objective of studying human and cultural evolution. Cultural evolution, like human evolution, was thought to have occurred in a stage-by-stage manner from simple to complex cultural and societal traits. This led to the belief that most of the tribal societies around the world represent an earlier stage of cultural evolution and will ultimately be evolved to the level of Western cultures and civilization. This led to a kind of ethnocentric bias. This bias, tilting towards the superiority of the white Western race, gave impetus to the idea of colonialism, as it was considered the duty of the white men to civilize the primitive societies. This earlier idea was used to consolidate Western colonialism in Africa and Asia. In the Indian context, most of the early anthropologists were British, and their main aim was to study different population in the subcontinent in order to improve the administrative mechanism. However, not every anthropologist and scholar of human culture was convinced of the line of thought of the evolutionists. This led to a change in the objective of the subject towards a more synchronic view, or in other words, the objective changed from anthropology as a study of history to a discipline that became more concerned in studying societies at the present state, or as here and now. This objective was most visible in the works of Malinowski, who rejected the idea that simple social institutions were inferiority to complex one. He was of strong view of that the idea of basic needs that are common to all human beings and because of which different social institutions are formed. Harris, 1968 2001. 1.2.2. Nature-nurture debate. Pioneers in the subject have used the anthropological methodology to fulfill the objective of challenging certain stereotypes and assumptions. It is through this objective that anthropologists have contributed positively towards some basic debates in both natural and social sciences. One such debate centers around the nature-nurture controversy. It is still being debated that which among the two is more important. Is it nature or biology that determines human capabilities and personalities, or is it the nurture or culture that contributes towards this end? Leaning heavily towards any one of them can lead to dangerous conclusions. The case in point here is the notion of race. Although race is a social construct, people tend to believe that certain physical characteristics go with certain behavioral patterns. In other words, human behavior is considered to be naturally determined. This led to the formation of certain stereotypes related to race. For instance, this led to a belief that certain races are superior to others. However, this line of thinking was not acceptable to some anthropologists, and pioneer among them was Franz Boas. Boas was of the opinion that human behavior is culturally determined, and to fulfill this objective and to establish this line of thinking, he prepared one of his students, Margaret Mead, to study the adolescent behavior among the Samoans. It was widely held before this study that adolescent was an age of trauma and disturbances, and adolescent boys and girls tend to engage in a rebellious behavior. Such kind of behavior was thought to be rooted in their genes and thus was thought to be universal. Boas contended that if he can find even one example where adolescence was not a period of trauma and disturbances, then the biological basis of such an assumption could be challenged and its cultural basis could be established. With this objective in mind, Margaret Mead studied the adolescent behavior among the Samoans and found that their adolescent was unlike that of Americans. Samoan adolescents seemed to be well adjusted with no associated trauma or disturbances. With such a finding, the importance of nurture became established. Harris, 1968 2001. 1.2.3 Applying anthropology to solve life problems. Anthropology is studied and practiced to bring about positive change in the lives of the people. This is the applied aspect of anthropology, where anthropological knowledge is used to help people lead better lives. Development seems to be the buzzword in the present global context. It requires utilization and consumption of natural resources in the form of forest produces, minerals, coal, etc. That in turn may require felling of trees for wood and mining to extract minerals. Such activities lead to large-scale displacement of people, mostly tribes who inhabit such areas for centuries. It is in this context that the anthropological knowledge and insight comes in handy. Anthropologists are people who can take stand for such a marginalized section of the population. Knowledge about tribal needs and wants can help in protecting their rights. In this context, anthropology relates to the issue of advocacy of civil rights. Olivier de Sardin, 2005. The applied dimension of anthropology was also largely influenced by the World War II, Eames and Good, 1977. During the Second World War, it was realized that anthropological knowledge and methods can be used to understand the enemy culture in order to hasten victory of the Allied forces. One such study was conducted by Ruth Benedict on Japanese prisoners in America in order to understand the Japanese culture. Such studies came to be known as studying culture at a distance, because in such a study the anthropologist is not going among the natives in their land but trying to study their culture through some cultural representatives, like in this case, war prisoners. Based on her study, Benedict wrote Chrysanthemum and the Sword. Studies with similar objectives were conducted by other anthropologists during the Second World War in America that focused on the issue of dietary patterns of the people. It was believed that if the dietary pattern can be studied and changed in accordance with food items that were in greater supply during the war, then the food crisis may be resolved. Eames and Good, 1977. 1.2.4 Universal vs. Specific knowledge. The basic underlying objective of the subject has been to juxtapose the local with the global. In other words, the anthropological knowledge has grown from understanding the particular in the context of the universal. This is to say that even when an anthropologist looks on the particular, her aim remains universal. This is evident from the above examples where an anthropologist chose a very specific community for her study and based on such a study aimed at answering certain basic questions which are more fundamental in nature. Acquiring particular knowledge also fulfills the objective of comparing it with the known. For example, if the objective of an anthropologist is to understand the position of women in the society, then she will start with asking the question, what is the position of women across different societies? After having obtained answers from different societies, she will compare them in order to reach some kind of conclusions. This kind of particular knowledge also has some advantage in the form of suggesting alternative strategies and structural formulations that may lead to solving present problems. For example, while studying gender equality, if alternative models of equal status of men and women in the society are available, then they can be emulated on a larger scale. Beard Moose, 2010. Similarly, understanding religion and its function in the contemporary society will begin from similar questions of the function and status of religion in other societies. This specific, particular knowledge about a single society helps in reorienting and reframing fundamental questions and concepts. For example, Kathleen Goff studied the marriage and family patterns among the Nayars of Kerala, which led to the reformulation of the definition of some communities have lived with disasters such as floods and droughts for decades and therefore have developed specific knowledge related to its management and resilience. This knowledge is integrated with the larger disaster management plans, National Policy on Disaster Management, 2009. Studies with similar objectives were conducted by other anthropologists during the Second World War in America that focused on the issue of dietary patterns of the people. It was believed that if the dietary pattern can be studied and changed in accordance with food items that were in greater supply during the war, then the food crisis may be resolved. Eames and Good, 1977. 1.2.4 Universal vs. Specific knowledge. The basic underlying objective of the subject has been to juxtapose the local with the global. In other words, the anthropological knowledge has grown from understanding the particular in the context of the universal. This is to say that even when an anthropologist looks on the particular, her aim remains universal. This is evident from the above examples where an anthropologist chose a very specific community for her study and based on such a study aimed at answering certain basic questions which are more fundamental in nature. Acquiring particular knowledge also fulfills the objective of comparing it with the known. For example, if the objective of an anthropologist is to understand the position of women in the society, then she will start with asking the question, what is the position of women across different societies? After having obtained answers from different societies, she will compare them in order to reach some kind of conclusions. This kind of particular knowledge also has some advantage in the form of suggesting alternative strategies and structural formulations that may lead to solving present problems. For example, while studying gender equality, if alternative models of equal status of men and women in the society are available, then they can be emulated on a larger scale. Beard Moose, 2010. Similarly, understanding religion and its function in the contemporary society will begin from similar questions of the function and status of religion in other societies. This specific, particular knowledge about a single society helps in reorienting and reframing fundamental questions and concepts. For example, Kathleen Goff studied the marriage and family patterns among the Nayars of Kerala, which led to the reformulation of the definition of some communities have lived with disasters such as floods and droughts for decades and therefore have developed specific knowledge related to its management and resilience. This knowledge is integrated with the larger disaster management plans, National Policy on Disaster Management, 2009. The discipline of archaeology also contributed to urban anthropology. Archaeologists are more concerned with the study of the emergence of urban centers and the factors that led to their emergence. Such studies become important in the backdrop of understanding the processes that led to urban civilizations. Eames and Good, 1977. 1.3.2 Anthropological methods. The applied dimension of anthropology has broadened its scope by applying the methods of anthropology to solve the problems of communities. Applied anthropology uses tools like rapid rural appraisal, RRA, and participatory rural appraisal, PRA, for addressing particular problems and then suggesting solutions. Under the RRA, a quick appraisal of the problems of a rural community is made in order to bring about time-bound changes in their conditions. With the use of PRA, the anthropological notion of insider's perspective comes to life. Bernard, 2006. Under the PRA techniques, people participate in negotiating the meaning and extent of their problems and suggest solutions. For example, people affected by floods might sit together and prepare vulnerability maps that may mark those areas in their vicinity that are more prone to floods. Similarly, they may prepare safe route maps that can provide alternative routes in case of an emergency situation. Khatri, 2012. PRA is based upon the notion that people know the best. A lot of tribal communities in the central Indian belt have been displaced from their lands on the pretext of developmental activities in the form of building dams, mining, acquiring forest produce, especially wood, etc. As these areas are rich in mineral and forest resources, anthropologists have been studying such processes and have advocated for the rights of such tribes. 1.3.3 Business Management. Anthropologists have ventured into new and challenging areas of business management and disaster management. The twin concepts of society and culture are the hallmark of anthropological studies. Anthropologists are considered to be specialists in understanding culture, society, and various changes that occur in these systems. The field of management anthropology makes use of this specialty of an anthropologist in understanding cross-cultural trade and business practices. Business is not only limited to economic transactions, rather it envisages a more dynamic behavioral aspect. People meet and interact with each other and crack deals worth billions of dollars. These behavioral aspects are best understood by anthropologists. The anthropological method of ethnography and in-depth study at a micro level come in handy while studying management-related issues. The entire range of anthropological tools can be applied basically at three levels. 1. At the level of understanding the organizational structure and culture of a multinational corporate business house. 2. At the level of understanding the behavior of consumers and customers for enhancing product design for attaining more profit. 3. At the level of understanding the impact of market culture on the lifestyle and social institutions like family, marriage patterns, etc. In the society, the anthropological tool of the comparative method provides an opportunity for cross-cultural comparisons and reach to a generalization of best practices in relation with marketing and organizational setup of an organization. Khatri, 2012. 1.3.4 Disaster Management. Anthropologists have a lot to contribute towards disaster management. Disasters are increasing globally, which is resulting in large-scale damage to property and life. This has led to a realization that disaster management has to be a continuous process rather than limited to a post-disaster relief event. Now the efforts are made towards reducing risk and vulnerabilities of various social groups. Some people are more vulnerable than others on the basis of poverty, gender, age, social capital, and the physical space that they occupy. A disaster, rather than being a physical or natural event, is a product of hazards and socio-spatial vulnerabilities. Anthropologists have contributed towards disaster management by studying and suggesting methods of vulnerability reduction. Khatri, 2012. 1.3.5 Biological, Physical Anthropology RSITY of human beings. As anthropology is a holistic discipline, the study of human beings as biological entities also fall under the scope of the subject. Here anthropologists are largely concerned with human paleontology and human genetics. In human paleontology, studies are conducted on human fossils and an attempt is being made to unravel the evolutionary history of humans. Ember et al., 2002. The field of primatology is also related to human beings as it tries to trace the roots and points of departures that led to the evolution of Homo sapiens. Ember et al., 2002. The field of human genetics tries to understand human variations, disease distribution across regions and human adaptations on a genetic level. There are areas like human growth and nutrition where both physical, biological and socioeconomic dimensions become integrated. Growth and nutrition are affected by socioeconomic factors such as income, group status and social capital. Ember et al., 2002. 1.3.6 Archaeological Anthropology. Studying societies and cultures of the remote past also fall under anthropology. This branch is called archaeological anthropology. Here the main emphasis is on reconstructing the past societies on the basis of evidences that may appear in the form of artifacts, cave paintings, etc. Anthropologists try to reconstruct the lifestyle of the people who either left no written records or those who left certain written material but which could not be deciphered as yet. Ember et al., 2002. Check your progress. 3. 7. What is applied dimension of anthropology? 8. What is PRA method? 1.4 Significance. Anthropology acquaints us with human, cultural and biological variations. This realization makes us more sensitive to the aspirations of different groups in the society. Anthropological methods of in-depth fieldwork and participant observations bring out significant results in the form of giving voice to people's experiences. Such methods are also adopted by other disciplines like history. Oral histories of different oppressed communities are generated using these methods. This becomes important in the backdrop of the emergence of political public. An anthropological concern with the tribal societies helps in understanding them better and in turn leads to better policy formulations for their development. The British to a great extent were able to rule Indians because of their training and knowledge in anthropology. The subject is also significant because it advocates a holistic understanding of humans as opposed to partial and more specialized understanding. This furnishes a complete picture of any event or phenomenon. For example, if a new drug or a treatment regimen for a disease needs to be introduced in a tribal area, it is bound to meet with resistance as the two worldviews, modern medicine and traditional healthcare, are not compatible to each other. The anthropological solution would be against the forceful introduction, and it would comply with a more nuanced approach of making people realize the importance of such regimen through their cultural metaphors. Anthropology tries to capture the uniqueness of human existence. It studies different cultures and societies. In the present globalized context, such studies become important as people are interacting with different cultures more frequently. Anthropology makes us more conversant with different cultures and enables us to appreciate diversities. The kind of knowledge that an anthropologist seeks is less in supply because anthropology emerged quite late on the academic scene. It emerged as an academic discipline only in the 19th century. Disciplines like physics, chemistry and mathematics predate it, as human beings started studying themselves and their own behavior quite late. This calls for further research on various dimensions in which an anthropologist is interested and thus acquires significance as a separate discipline. Ember et al., 2002. 1.5 Summary. Anthropology is a subject that studies human beings in time and space. It is a holistic discipline based on the notion of cross-cultural comparisons. Anthropology since its inception had been a comparative science. It is through the method of comparison that an anthropologist reaches to some kind of generalizations. Different cultures and human populations are compared in order to understand the similarities and differences between them. Anthropology is not a single discipline but an amalgam of different branches, namely physical, social and archaeology, linguistics. These three branches taken together help in giving a total picture of the human existence. Anthropologists are interested in understanding the origin and development of human species. They are also interested in knowing how the environment affects culture and how culture has an impact on the growth and development of human personality. They inquire about the existence of human variation and try to find reasons behind such variations. They are equally interested in the reconstruction of the human past and its culture. Anthropologists also have a diverse and unique toolkit in the form of research methods that help in answering questions and queries relating to the origin and development of man. In the new field of applied anthropology, anthropologists apply their knowledge and methods of research in solving practical problems. The objective of the subject has been to juxtapose the local with the global. In other words, the anthropological knowledge has grown from understanding the particular in the context of the universal. This is to say that even when an anthropologist looks on the particular, her aim remains universal. The hallmark of anthropological inquiry has been its fieldwork method. It is with this method that anthropologists are able to understand the other culture, or different culture including their own, in a better way. As anthropology is a new academic discipline, it needs a lot of research to enrich its knowledge base that it may meet the present global challenges. Thank you. Subscribe to our channel for more updates, and we will see you with the next chapter.